Today, based on Matthew 27:33 to 66, I'd like to understand the sermon, The Temple Curtain Torn in Two, together with you.
So let's go right to that moment on the cross. It's about the ninth hour, and Jesus, in absolute agony, cries out. And the sermon today really zeroes in on this. It emphasizes that this wasn't some quiet whisper. This was a shout, a raw, desperate cry from the very depths of his soul, just hurled out into the silence. In that moment, he is completely and utterly alone, experiencing total separation from God.
And then this happens. An immediate response. The very second Jesus breathes his last, something supernatural happens miles away in Jerusalem. You have to picture this thing, this huge, thick curtain that separates the Holy of Holies. It's just ripped into. And get this, it's not torn from the bottom up, like a person could do. No, it's torn from the top to the bottom. And the sermon presents this as God's direct answer, a powerful, visible sign from God himself.
And that right there is the central question of the sermon. Why? Why did the Son of God have to go through that kind of abandonment? Just so a curtain could be torn. What was so necessary about being forsaken? Well, to get the answer, we have to look at a very specific kind of law. A law that absolutely could not be changed.
So let's talk about this unchangeable law. You see, the preacher lays out this idea that the key to this whole mystery is understanding a principle that's so absolute, so binding, that not even the person who made the law could just ignore it.
To help us get our heads around this, the sermon points to a really powerful example from history, the law of the Medes and Persians. Now, here's the deal with their law. Once the king signed something into law, that was it. It could not be changed. It was totally irrevocable. And as you can imagine, this created a huge, dangerous problem for one king in particular. And that king was Darius. And the story the sermon walks us through is the story of Daniel. So what happens is, these jealous officials trick King Darius into signing one of these unchangeable laws. And the law says nobody can pray to anyone except the king. Well, of course, Daniel isn't going to stop praying to God. He's a faithful man. And here's the crucial part. King Darius really likes Daniel. He respects him, but he's completely trapped. The very law he signed forces him to condemn this man he wants to save. He is literally powerless against his own word. Think about that. And that's the connection the sermon makes for us. Just like King Darius was bound by his law, God established a spiritual law with a penalty that he himself would not change. The soul who sins shall die. Now, this isn't just talking about physical death. It's about spiritual separation from God. It's an absolute law. So for humanity to be saved, that penalty had to be paid. The law couldn't just be brushed aside. Okay, so how does this all connect back to the cross? Well, as the sermon explains, what happened to Jesus wasn't some tragic defeat. No way. It was the ultimate solution to this huge divine legal problem. He wasn't getting around the law, he was fulfilling it. And this brings us to Jesus' last words on the cross. The sermon today asks us to hear these words in a totally new way. When he says, "It is finished," that's not a sigh of defeat. It's not, "I'm done for." It's a shout of victory. It means the job is done. The debt is paid in full. Every single requirement of that unchangeable law has been met perfectly. And that's why the curtain tore. See? It all connects. It was the physical, visible proof of that victory. It was like God himself was shouting to the world, "That old system, the one that separated you from me, it's over. It's done." Its purpose was fulfilled because the price was paid, once and for all. So this one event, the tearing of the curtain, is just packed with so much meaning. The sermon today breaks it down for us. First, it means the age of the law is over. That barrier, that separation between a holy God and humanity, it's just gone. And that means, for the very first time, a new and direct path to God was thrown wide open for everybody. Not just for special priests, not just through endless sacrifices, for everyone. Okay, but this incredible act on the cross, it wasn't just some event in a history book, right? The preacher makes it really clear that this establishes a whole new way for us to live, right here, right now. It's a brand new principle for life. In the sermon, the preacher pulls from the book of Romans to really clarify this. He talks about two operating systems, you could say. On one hand, you have the old principle, the law of sin and death. That's the one we're all born into, where we try to be good, but we always seem to fall short. But on the other hand, because of what Christ did, we're invited into something totally new, the law of the Spirit of life.
And this new way isn't about gritting your teeth and trying harder. It's about being set free. It's about living in a real relationship with God. And this verse from Romans really nails it. It's the cornerstone of this new reality. The core message here is that the old law wasn't a bad thing, it was just powerless. It couldn't give life. But this new principle, this law of the Spirit of life in Jesus, it actually breaks us out of that old vicious cycle of sin and death. It's a complete game changer. So, where does this all lead? Ultimately, this sermon brings our focus right back to the one person who made all of this possible. Our attention moves away from the rules, away from trying to be good enough on our own, and it lands right on Jesus. He is the one who started this whole new way of faith, and he's the one who perfected it. The book of Hebrews kind of gives us the blueprint of his journey. First, he willingly went through the worst suffering imaginable on the cross, and he didn't even care about the public shame of it all. Why? Because he was focused on the joy, on the victory that was waiting for him. And because he did that, because of that obedience, he's been lifted up to the highest place of honor and authority, seated right at the right hand of God.
And this is a point that the sermon really emphasizes. Who we worship is not a victim who is forever stuck suffering on a cross. We have to acknowledge that suffering, of course we do. But our worship, our focus is on the living Christ, the one who rose from the dead, who is glorified, who beat death, and who is reigning in power right now. That is the absolute heart of the message.
So, as we wrap up our time with this sermon, it leaves us with this one big question. Let's be honest, we live in a world where everything feels like it's shaking, right? Our finances, our health, our whole society can feel unstable. But what the torn curtain shows us is an offer, an invitation to a kingdom that cannot be shaken. It's eternal. So the only question left for you, for me, for all of us, is how are we going to respond to that incredible offer?